We'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Our clerk has notified us that she will not be able to attend tonight's meeting. In her absence, I would love to
nominate
see.
Trustee Lay.
Support.
You do accept. With motion by Rogers and support by Thering to nominate Trustee Lay as our acting clerk for this meeting. Any other nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of Trustee Lay serving as acting clerk, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Those papers over there? Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, and thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Are you settled?
Want me to do the roll call?
Would you do the roll call of the board, please?
Supervisor Milky,
I am here.
Cody is absent. Treasurer Rogers,
Here?
Trustee Lannon,
Here.
Trustee Lay is here, Trustee Olver,
Here.
Trustee Thering.
Here.
Everybody is here or excused.
We have a great agenda in front of us tonight, but I'm happy to entertain motions regarding the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Support.
Motion by Rogers, support by Thering. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved as presented. That takes us to item 7 on our agenda, public comment, which is restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda. Note that if you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we will open up public comment at 7:03 p.m. Do we have anybody online?
We have a couple people. I don't see any hands.
For those individuals that are connected remotely, you can raise your hand digitally if you would like to address the public. I'll give you just a moment to do so. If not, you're also given an opportunity at the end of the meeting for extended public comment. Let the record show nobody coming forward in person and seeing no indication digitally. Correct? So with that, we'll close public comment at 7:04 p.m. Reports, boards, and comments. Current list of boards and commissions. We still have the EDA. I have gotten word that we may have an applicant for the Planning Commission. I was kind of surprised we hadn't seen it yet. And then I believe our ZBA still has a seat that, a permanent seat, because we have an alternate filled currently. So with the alternate, we have a full quorum of 5, but we have an empty seat. Any other business on that? Board member reports. Trustee Thering.
I do not have any to report. The next city commission meeting is next Monday. We're offset for this month.
Oh, very good. Trustee Olver.
Nothing to report today, other than I looked at the warrants yesterday and they look fantastic.
That's good to know.
Some of the
when we
best
get-
warranting I've done this month.
Trustee Lannon.
No, I have no reports as the county didn't hold meeting over the 4th of July week.
Very good.
I don't have anything either.
Okay.
I have nothing but meeting road commissions tomorrow morning, so I'll have it for next week.
Okay.
meeting.
I don't have anything from the past, but just a note, EDA meeting on, I think it's the 21st. Very full agenda on that, so hopefully we don't butt up against the Planning Commission time, Trustee Olver, since we share the room.
Oh, Well, won't that be fun?
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. And then the board review, don't quote me on this, I'm going from memory. I believe it's also on the 21st that morning. I'm getting nods, so I must have that correct. And that is just kind of a business meeting. Obviously, it's open to the public, but there's nothing regarding generally dealing with appeals for assessments. But I thought the public should note that we're meeting, and that'll be here in this room. And that's all our business for board member reports. That's about as light as they come, I think. Consent agenda's in front of us. We've already got a report that the warrants were the best ever.
Right.
Yes. But I'm happy to entertain any motions regarding the consent agenda.
Move to approve?
Support.
Motion by Oliver. I think I heard Rogers first. You okay with that?
I guess I'm gonna have to be. I wanted in on the best warrants.
Would you like to withdraw
I'll
your
have to wait till
support?
next time.
Okay.
We're good.
We'll get you.
Thank
Motion by Oliver, support by Rogers to approve consent agenda as presented. We've already got a comment that the warrants were great. Any other comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor of consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to our new business, item A. This is a proposed rezone, of which the first reading was done 2 weeks ago. And so this will be the second reading and proposed adoption. This is regarding property at 480 South Whiteville Road, moving from agricultural to R2A. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce this?
I will briefly, as indicated, and good evening, everybody. Hope you had a nice holiday weekend last week. Last meeting, the board conducted a first reading and introduced this item. The address is 4080 South Whiteville Road, and the request is to rezone part of the property from ag to R2A. You may recall this is currently a split zone property, and it would make the entire property R2A. I don't think I have anything to add beyond what was brought forward last week or 2 weeks ago. If there are any questions, be happy to answer them.
I'd like to move to conduct a second reading for the proposed PREZ 26-01 request to rezone the southerly 1.21 acres of 4080 South Whiteville Road. That's PID 14-030-20-01-00 in the northeast quarter of Section 30 from AG Ag Agricultural to the R2A Low Density 1 and 2 Family Residential Zoning District, and to adopt the amendatory ordinance as ordinance number 26-03.
Support.
Motion by Oliver, support by Rogers. Discussion? I didn't get to jump in last time because I wasn't here.
Oh.
The only thing that really caught my attention as I was going through had to do with the lack of utilities, public utilities, and the Planning Commission certainly did their due diligence in checking the drain field and the well, approving that, and then with a recommendation, I think from the Health Department, that they may want to look at upgrading that in the future, but that certainly met muster to date. And that's the big thing that caught my attention through this. I'm assuming there wasn't any pushback by the public on this in the Planning Commission? No. You guys all did this last time, so.
Oh.
Other comments? We have a motion on the floor. Anybody not clear on the motion? Acting Clerk Lay, would you be willing to roll call the board?
Supervisor Milky?
Yes?
Treasurer Rogers?
Yes.
Trustee Lannan?
Yes.
Trustee Light? A, yes. Trustee Olver?
Yes.
Trustee Thering?
Yes.
We have 6 yeses and 0 nos.
Very good. Well, thanks for being here, Mr. Beebe. It's nice to see you.
I'm gonna sit and listen. I see Kim's on the agenda, so I'm gonna sit.
I figured that's what you were here for, so anyways, I wanted to at least recognize you since you didn't get up and speak, and, yeah.
Didn't look like it needed to, so.
Very good. Well, welcome anyways. That brings us to new business item B, consider approval of the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. This is the next step in a fairly long journey we've been on. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce this?
Yes, thank you. There is a report on this item that begins on page 42 of your agenda packet. Just a little bit of background. This is all related. This item and the next item are all related to the Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan project that we've been talking about for several months now. And just going back a bit, the funding was made available at the federal level, came through via the state and EAGLE, or the State of Michigan Clean Water Revolving Fund program. In September of 22, so we're going back a few years, we did a high-level overview of this project at that time. I think we also did the drinking water one also. So that began to introduce you to this project that we've been looking at. In October of 2025, we were notified by the state that the project plan that we had submitted was funded for the FY26 funding cycle in the in the amount of $6,520,000. And Union Township is designated as an overburdened community, so that qualified us for 2 things. One, a low interest loan, which is 2% if we move forward. And then we have 20 or 30 years per the code for the term of the loan. And this ordinance that's in front of you today recommends a 30-year term. And then more recently, in November of 25, the board adopted a resolution, in November of 25, we asked the board, we kind of took a minute, paused, we wanted to check with the board. Do you still want us to proceed? Because at this point it would be a loan and with some forgiveness, but do you want us to continue proceeding down the road? And the answer to that was yes. So we continued down the road. The project, 3 high-level items. It's replacing 2 screw pumps, 1 and 2. It is also installing redundant mechanical fine screen components as part of the treatment process, and then also constructing, installing a second sludge storage tank. All this being done out at the treatment plant just north of town here. In February of 2026, the board approved a notice of intent resolution. That was a formal notice published in the paper in its entirety, I believe. And that was the formal process to notify the public of the township's intent to borrow money to fund this project. That notice of intent was in the amount of not to exceed $6,520,000, which was the amount of the state award. So we did that, and I forget the length of time for the, I'll call it a referendum period, but that expired. There was no petitions circulated or signed or submitted to the township, so we have been able to check that box. The next step in the process is to adopt an ordinance, and this is an ordinance under the state borrowing code. You're used to adopting ordinances here where you have to have 2 meetings. This does not require 2 meetings to adopt this ordinance, so if you do adopt it, it's all we have to do is adopt it tonight. The notice of intent, I think, kind of takes care of the second noticing period that you're used to with your more local ordinances. This ordinance dictates the all the terms of the loan. We still have an amount not to exceed $6,520,000. We're not anticipating having to borrow that much. One, the project is going to come in a little less than that, and plus there's at the back end for a 13% forgiveness piece that is close to $800,000. So even now we're continuing to make that not to exceed an amount of $6.5 million, probably something south of $6 million after you take in the loan forgiveness component. So this ordinance authorizes the issuance of what will be called the Series 2026 bonds. Those are payable from the net revenues of the system, essentially the quarterly billings by the ratepayers that are part of the system. It indicates that the debt would be repaid in 30 annual payments. This is an annual payment for 30 years. Sometimes when the municipalities borrow, they have 2 payments a year. There's never monthly payments like your mortgage or something. But this is an annual payment. Interest rate would be 2%, and we are anticipating receiving the loan forgiveness amount. In your packet, there is a letter, cover letter from our bond counsel, and then there's also a full copy of the ordinance and also a copy of the bond itself. The lender would be the Michigan Finance Authority. They work in conjunction with Eagle. Eagle approves the project plan. The MFA, Michigan Finance Authority, approves the lending. The next step, assuming this is approved, we need to get a we don't receive a rating, a traditional bond rating that you might have some experience with. You put together a rather detailed operating statement and for the bondholders, but we do need to go to S&P 500 and ask for a credit analysis, and we're in the process of doing that. We just submitted answers to 20 or so questions today, and we'll end up having a short meeting with them because the MFA Of course, they're interested in our ability to repay the loan, and then they rely on S&P, who does this kind of thing, credit analysis. And they'll issue a report to the MFA and to Union Township once they complete that part. It is anticipated that the loan would close in August of 2027, or I'm sorry, 2026. And then as it relates to the next item on your agenda, that has to do with tentatively approving a construction contract related to this project, the payment of which would be handled by this borrowing. So I hope that is reasonably clear. Happy to answer any questions you may have. You may wonder why we're recommending a 30-year versus a 20-year. Yes, a 30-year or the 30-year loan carries with it more interest payment than a 20-year. Just like your mortgage, 20 versus 30, you're going to pay less interest over the life of the borrowing. But we think 30 years is appropriate because these assets are designed to last this length of time. And from a public policy perspective, it's very reasonable that future users of the system would help pay for what we're building today for their use into the future. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
The age of the current one that we're replacing?
I'm sorry?
It's worth noting the current, our
Pumps,
old.
screws?
Yes,
Screw
screws. They're quite old.
2000.
Yeah.
They were put into service in 2000.
Yeah.
Trustee Lannan.
I'd motion to approve ordinance number 26-04, authorizing the issuance of sanitary sewer system revenue bonds to provide for the acquisition, construction, installation, furnishing, and equipping of additions and improvements to the sanitary sewer system of the Charter Township of Union in the principal amount not to exceed $6,520,000 through the State of Michigan Clean Water State Revolving Fund, CWSRF program.
Support?
Motion by Lannan, support by Rogers. Discussion?
I'm just gonna say I'm very grateful that we went on the field trip to the sewer treatment, or the wastewater treatment plant, so that we could see all of these mechanicals and see how they operate, so we have context for what we're voting on. Why is my microphone turned around?
The proposal to me seems very reasonable, very important, taken into consideration. I agree with the 30-year repayment plan. That makes a lot of sense. It's a long, durable, hard asset of the township, and more taxpayers will get the opportunity to share in the financing of it.
I'll just note, this is more for the public because we've discussed this, but whenever I think of taking a loan, I kind of cringe a little bit. And our primary responsibility is fiduciary. But I can, with a straight face, say that it makes financial sense to go after this kind of a bond where we're getting a 2% with a 13% forgiveness. So you can think of the effective interest rate, at least the math that I did, came down to a 1.2% interest rate with that 13% forgiveness. And if you think about not having to drain our sewer fund to make this happen, the money and what we do with the cash on hand it's gonna make up that 1.2% largely, because we're aggressive in making sure the money is earning interest itself. And so from just a purely financial perspective, it makes a lot of sense not to front load this and draining out reserves. It's the smart thing to do. And I say that again with that cringe factor I always get when I think about municipalities borrowing money.
I may add one more.
Sure.
Apologize, I failed to mention that this loan is, we do have the ability to prepay early with no penalty, which we've done often when we borrow money. There's finance calculations that get involved, but whether or not we pay off early a 2% loan, it's not much above zero. But we do have, if we were to have surplus cash beyond our targets, we maintain our debt ratios, and we have the cash at any given time over the next 30 years, we can prepay part or all of this early with no penalty. Thank you.
Good addition. Other discussion? We have a motion on the floor. Anybody not clear on the motion? Trustee Lay, I'm going to ask for a roll call if you'd be willing to do that of the board.
Supervisor Milky?
Yes.
Treasurer Rogers?
Yes.
Trustee Lannon?
Yes.
Trustee Lay is a yes. Trustee Oliver?
Yes.
Trustee Thering?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Motion passes.
All right, that brings us to our next business item, which is related, as the manager so indicated. Item C, consider approval of contract regarding this Clean Water State Revolving Fund project. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you be willing to introduce this?
Thank you. And the report for this item begins on page 64 of your agenda packet. We're asking for consideration to approve to tentatively award a construction contract for this project to the Fisher's Contracting in the amount of $4,389,904.50 for the project that we've just been talking about. Again, it's the replacement of 2 screw pumps, mechanical fine screening component, and the installation of a second sludge storage tank. We received five bids on this project back in June. They were analyzed by the team along with Gordy Frazier, our engineer. There's a letter in your packet from Gordy Frazier. They've reviewed all the bids. They're recommending Fisher Contracting along with the rest of the internal team. I will, and I don't expect you to remember any of these numbers, but so we have a construction contract of $4.3 million, okay? And then on top of that, as part of the whole package, there will be contingencies in the amount of $651,000 on this. We have engineering costs that you've already approved, $700,000. There's some administration costs involved with this, bond counsel, financial advisors, and so forth. So this construction contract is just a component. It's the largest component of the total project and the total project cost. The total anticipated project cost when you add all of these things up is $5,881,000. And so that is the amount that you might want to compare to a not to exceed amount of $6.5 million. We don't intend to borrow $6.5 million. It would be closer to the $5.8 million This is tentative because until we get all the i's dotted, t's crossed, the review by the rating agency, the Michigan Finance Authority, Eagle, all of this is sort of tentative. So that's why it's a tentative award. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
The contingency, I'm assuming, based on what I've read at least here, is primarily just for scope change, correct?
Correct. You know, site conditions, if you get on site,
Right.
you run into something,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because they were bid as spec'd and requested. This would be, yeah, if there's changes in the,
In the scope.
Yep.
Run, soils are not what we expect, and all those soil layings were done, like at the sludge storage tank location, or something, anything that you find during construction.
Right.
That's what those kind of contingencies are used for.
and that was my assumption, but I wanted to hear the answer, so. Any other questions?
I move to approve a resolution to tentatively award a construction contract for wastewater system improvements to Fisher Contracting in the amount of $4,389,904.50 for the Clean Water State Revolving Fund sanitary sewer system improvement project.
Support. Motion by Rogers, support by Olver. Discussion?
I was just happy to see we had 5 bids, we've been
Yes.
putting out bids, and sometimes folks aren't necessarily responding, and so you get less response than you would maybe hope for, but if they went out to those 5 folks, I'm sure they're all approved qualified bidders that we'd ask, and at least 5 of them responded, so.
Yeah, we were happy to get 5 bids. We had a pretty good meeting, and all, the contractors are required to show up with that, so we had a pretty good idea that we were gonna get several bids, because usually if they should take the time to pull the pre-bid, they go on the job,
Right.
so we were happy to see that, yes.
And quite a separation between
Yes.
the bids as well.
And we did double check with them, they're low bidder, we did make sure, we talked to them about the scope. We were most concerned about the sludge storage tank, because the specs have a lot of shoring and sheeting to protect the existing one. We wanted to make sure that they fully understood what was going to be required, and they provided us with all those assurances and numbers to back those up, so we were comfortable with it.
I'll just add, on behalf of Fisher, it was nice to see that they didn't have any subcontractors listed either, so you've got one finger to point if there's issues.
Yeah, they have a mechanical subcontractor. We had to request that information. It's actually the same mechanical contractor that a couple of the other ones used, and we've worked for them before. It wasn't in their original bid
Okay,
documents.
which is what's in this,
Yeah, they
okay.
have 5 days after the bid opening to provide those, and they provided them right away, and we reviewed all those, and actually they do their own dirt work, so that's a big portion of this job. They're going to do it, because they have an arm that does that, so they're going to do that, but they do have a mechanical contractor, and they do have an electrical contractor for some of the work that will happen within the Headworks building. But both of them were ones that we were familiar with and have actually worked with before on the project, so.
It also looks like a lot of this money's being spent here right in Michigan.
Yeah, the parent screens, those are made in Saginaw, so we're happy about that. A lot of what we're purchasing is right here in Michigan.
Anything else, anyone?
Did I see somewhere that it said Fisher was out of Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan?
Midland.
But I
Okay.
saw it too, and then I had to double check it, and their paperwork actually said Midland, but it did say Sault Ste. Marie.
There was at least some response from Fisher out of Sault Ste. Marie office, I think. But I was thinking,
Yeah, they're.
that's more the local folks.
Yeah, they're out of Midland, yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I had seen that before, and it's on page 90 at the top, Schedule A, Schedule B. Name of organization, Fisher Contracting, project owner, City of Sault Ste. Marie.
Well, that's actually probably a somebody they used as a, that they work for, maybe what you're looking at?
Oh, you're right, it is, that's
Yeah.
what it is. But that's where I saw the Sault Ste. Marie.
That was another thing that we, some of their projects they provide, because they're required to provide references. We have not worked with Fisher before, and because their projects that they included in their bid packet were smaller projects, not quite what we were doing, we asked them for additional, and they were able to provide those, and we did contact City of Midland, City of Clare, so there are people that are right in this local area that they've done more than one project for, and they have favorable things to say. And Gordy Frazier's actually worked with them before, so.
Yeah, and in the case of the City of Bay City, actually a screw pump replacement. So.
Yes, yeah, it was a smaller dollar amount, but they, and we know some of the people at Bay City, and we talked to them as well.
I'll second your comment about the number of bids that were received. It's nice to see. Anything else on this? We have a motion on the floor for the authorization, assuming everything still continues to go well, for a large amount of money, so I would prefer a roll call vote if that's okay.
Do you want a roll call? Supervisor Milky?
That'd be before I answer.
sorry.
Anybody not clear in the motion? Okay.
Okay, Supervisor Milky?
Yes.
Okay. Treasurer Rogers?
Yes.
Trustee Lannon?
Yes.
Trustee Lay? Yes. Trustee Olver?
Yes.
Trustee Thering?
Yes.
And it passes.
Wonderful, thank you. That brings us to item D on our agenda, discussing business meeting frequency. Our manager put together a brief document indicating a perspective from the organization, how that may affect or not affect, and both positively and negatively, the organization. And we've had some very brief discussions. So I'm not sure I feel qualified to introduce this. Did you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. This item is a matter of discussion, came up, I'll say several months ago, and there's been some brief discussion at the board level. I believe it was at the last meeting, it might have been 2 meetings ago, that the board said they wanted to continue that discussion and asked that the administration, maybe I offered, but to put together some information for you to kind of, as a jumping off point maybe for your discussion. That is the purpose of this memo. You know, I think depending on maybe initial points of view, some of the items that I may label as arguments in favor of reducing the number of meetings could be, you know, might be like two sides of the same coin. Somebody else's thought might be that's more of a negative than a positive. But I've listed some of those here. This is really a board level policy discussion. The only thing I want to emphasize is on page 2 of the memo, we spend a little bit of time on the meeting frequency in this discussion as it relates to policy governance, because I think that really is an important, how you tie the two together in terms of what you're trying to accomplish through policy governance. So with that, I'll just turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you. Well, this board, I think it was 3 meetings ago, because it was a meeting I wasn't at, but I did watch that one. But there was discussion that they wanted to, this board wanted to bring this back and talk about it. I guess I'm going to open up the floor to thoughts.
My biggest opposition to this, besides the fact that I don't think we would be able to adequately give everything that we're discussing attention, is when we had the meeting with the field trip. We started at 5, and we left after 9 o'clock. And I feel like, as a trustee, I was not able to give my full energy as the meeting got on. I feel like I was, my brain was not in it anymore. And I really fear that if we were to go to a model like this, I would not be able to give the quality of attention that I give with the shorter meetings.
That's certainly been one of my concerns, is because I've sat through in the past, in fact, this board used to regularly have trustee meetings every 2 weeks that went till midnight very often. I know Trustee Lannon sat on those. And I've had some on the planning commission that have gone very long. And I just want to reinforce your comment that usually after about 2 hours, you begin to lose your ability to do your job the best you can. And that's certainly a concern of mine. And we do certainly have meetings sometimes that end up short. Half hour is not common, but it does happen. But we're typically within about that 2 hour time frame. And I do have a fear that if we did all the business once a month, that we might be running that too long of a meeting. And something would give, whether it's attention to constituents' needs, a request for something, rezone, for example, or doing our policy governance review. I would hate for that to suffer. I also like the ability for the public to have more opportunities to be here. Granted, we don't have a lot of public that comes to these, but it does give them more opportunities to come before the public and voice their opinions. Having said all that, I'm not opposed to looking at some creative ways to look at our calendar. Meaning, as we set up the calendar for next year, December we only have 1 month historically, or one meeting historically. Is summer something that, because of vacation schedules and everything else, is that something we should look at maybe at every 3 weeks? Or are there slow months in our process where it would make sense to have 2 meetings every month with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 months? I'm open to that. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm certainly open to those discussions. But just doing once a month would be, I think, a disservice to primarily the public, who we're responsible for the most. And I think fiduciary responsibility being our number one responsibility, I think going through those warrants and approving those and seeing what we're approving and spending is, it's good to have eyes on it all the time. Did I speak too long?
No.
Hey, it got quiet in here.
Personally, I don't take issue with the current schedule and don't see enough cause to make a change. I agree with what's been said about, personally, I like shorter meetings more often than longer meetings less often.
You know, in this write-up, it mentioned it on the second page on the policy governance part. Our relationships, those are important. Having to work with each other and get along and, agree to disagree sometimes. But I think the relationships that we have are important. We have opportunities to be social before and after meetings, other occasions. Whenever we have those opportunities, I think that reinforces what we do here. Makes us stronger.
I was looking at our first 3 business items that theoretically would be pushed back 2 more weeks if we, did it once a month. And that, the first one could have an effect on a developer or a project that's going on. 2 weeks can sometimes be a lot. Along with township business, that maybe 2 weeks makes a difference on how we go to business. So I agree with Tom.
I think the pro reasons to look at this, is it would alleviate some of our schedules, free up a night a month. You could argue that that makes it easier to attend MTA meeting or who knows what, some public meeting, that which is also important. Maybe reduce burnout by the board. I don't think so, though. Maybe it can happen. Yeah, I'm trying to think of reasons for that. I think we do have some meetings where it's very short. On the other side is if we chose to do a monthly one, addressing the issue that Trustee Therian just brought up, because I agree with your comment, but we could choose to have an extra meeting whenever it was needed.
Doesn't that require putting an ad in the paper and?
No, I think 24 hours, maybe it's 48 hours. What's the law?
Yes, 24.
24 hour
For
notice.
special.
Just on the.
And so we just have to put it out in front of Township Hall.
And probably a website.
And yeah, I mean,
Yep.
it needs to be posted somewhere, but we would be transparent as possible with that.
Yep.
And that's not always fair to the public if we were to then now have a meeting they're not expecting to deal with business. I think part of the motivation behind some of this, maybe, I'm gonna take some liberty here, might be, we all miss meetings. And that happens. Life happens, we all have personal lives that have day jobs. We all have personal lives where life kicks you in the rear and you got to deal with something. Hopefully those are far and few between. But from my perspective, and I'll pick on Clerk Cody because she's not here tonight.
That's not very kind.
And I pick on her, but I take no offense to the fact that she had something that made her unable to attend tonight. The only time I ever take exception when someone's missing is I don't like doing board appointments without the full board. And so sometimes I'll say, I'd rather not do the nomination for this tonight because we're missing a board member or two. We'll hold this off. That's not maybe always the best choice, but I prefer the whole board be involved in certain decisions. So I thought a lot about, would we really have better attendance? And I'm not sure that's the case because if things still come up, things still happen. Except now if you're missing more. More business because you're, instead of attending one of the meetings in the month and getting half the business, you're missing all the business for that month. And I guess I want to ask you, this board, is anybody here have issues with attendance or when people miss meetings? Is that an issue?
No, because people don't do it frivolously. There's usually a really good reason why.
Whether it be personal or
Yeah.
business or family or whatever, right? Is that an issue for anybody? Because I would recommend that you go on with your lives and you'd be given that latitude. You know how important the public's business is, but life happens. And
Absolutely, that is correct. When given an option though, you know, I got this fun opportunity or this business that I've committed to the citizens and ran on, that I'm here to do their business. Hopefully the scales tilt towards doing the business that you have agreed to do.
yeah, and I haven't seen any evidence
Right.
of that being abused in any way.
I'm sure everybody
Yeah.
thinks hard about it.
Yeah. I was on business travel last meeting in Texas, and it was eating me up,
sorry.
trust me. It was 115 degrees when I got off the plane. It was hot. But yeah, it was hard not to be here.
Interesting, since I was the one who brought the issue, the discussion to fruition, after reading all of the pros and cons, then I began to question, like, okay, no, it needs to be, we need to always move forward. And I have to agree that that would not be the best idea. But I like the idea of maybe lighter months, or if there's some kind of creative way. But we have to make it uniform for the public too. They can't go, okay, when are they meeting this month? But if our schedule is on the website, it's already there for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we publish the schedule for the year.
Yep, so. Yeah,
So let me ask the question of this board. Would you like to entertain looking at next year's calendar maybe differently than we have in the past?
I'd like some metrics, to like look at what our traffic is for our, agendas, so that we could make an educated decision.
I did have this conversation with our manager in the management team meeting, and there's some sense of that. So if you think of the early months of the year, that's very often you're kicking off the new budget, you're getting ready for construction season, so there's a lot of business that happens those first few months. I think if we have a taper off, it's typically into mid to later summer, and then we get into budget season again. And that typically ramps back up our focus.
I'm looking at this month. I mean, for some reason in my head, it seemed like July always seemed to be a little bit slower.
Light.
If I remember
I would
correctly.
agree.
But look at the first 3 business items. That's not slower, which is wonderful. You just don't know when things are going to happen. That's if we had a perfect world where everything was right as rain, then giddy up. Let's go once a month. Let's do that. But and like you said, August, September, October, November, those guys, in my opinion, they have to be twice a month for all the things that we do. December, I get that. And we're sometimes busy in January and February. Some of the things that we talked about tonight, I think, came up in February, if I recall right. Is it February? On this particular item?
Yeah, we've been
And,
dealing with this issue for several years
Yeah, right.
before
So
it came to fruition.
I completely understand life happens and you may not be able to attend. We have 7 of us. If there's 6, I understand. A handful of life happenings beginning of the year, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
I missed, I think, 2 meetings in a row, and I had to.
Well, it's helpful for me to hear from this board that there aren't concerns. I mean, because that has been something in the past, attendance-wise for some trustees. But I don't know if those are personal issues that brought that up, or if they were, it's been commented before, but I've not heard any of that from any of you, that there's concern about attendance. I think we trust each other that if you need to miss a meeting,
Yeah.
you have good reason. Trustee Lannon.
I guess at the first mention of it, quickly, 13 plus years of work on this board kind of went across my mind. And I actually really didn't know whether to laugh or cry immediately. And, but then we talked, and yeah, it's worthy of discussion. But before I could make a decision of it, I'd really like some concrete information further, how this affects the duties of the manager, the department heads, the department staff, the impact it could have on our taxpayers, the consumers of our services, on our community business partners that we work with, other municipalities and entities, and the effect on the board, and major league, our fiscal responsibility to the township for it, and how it would impact policy governance. So I think it's a real worthwhile thing to consider, but without a little more information, I wouldn't be ready to say, yeah, let's go short in this month and this month and this month, because, if I'm a contractor and it just so hits, I got a big project that comes to me, and traditionally the township slow month, and they decide to go less. And if it's not scheduled, we've probably scheduled our life, and we're not getting back to a special meeting in July. It just seems a bit impractical. I don't think there's been abuses by the board in attendance like we've talked about. So without considerable more information, and as Trustee Rogers said, you know, she brought the idea forth, so I would want to hear from her the pros. I'd want to hear from the management team. You know, they're going to be closer to understanding than I would. And so there'd be some data collection that would be needed on my part.
Part of what we talked about too was the time the meetings start. Consider changing that. So that's not this conversation, but it's something that we're going to talk about sometime soon. Maybe not having them start at 7 o'clock at night.
So I'm over here doing math. 'Cause, okay, so 2 meetings a month, with the exception of December, that's 23 meetings a year, right? But then I think, right, Supervisor Milky, you had said something about every 3 weeks, and that, okay, so that's 17 meetings a year. You save 6 meetings a year if you do it that way, and you're every 3 weeks, which is still pretty consistent with being able to manage business on a regular basis. July 22nd, 2 weeks from now, would be our second meeting for July, but then the August 12th meeting is 21 days away, right? So I have in my mindset the 2nd and the 4th, so we meet every 2 weeks. No, we actually don't. So I think there might be something to that idea of meeting every 3 weeks to maintain the business, but maybe lighten the load administratively and in terms of the overall number of meetings. So maybe as a hybrid solution, we could look at something like that.
Yeah, I think twice a year we get that 3-week break between meetings because we're
5 week months.
Because,
yeah,
like, yeah, this
second
is
and
a,
fourth Wednesday, but there might
this is a weird
Yeah.
month.
Yeah. So it just struck me when I looked at that example. So
We just don't know when the business is going to be slower or faster, and I wouldn't recommend going any less than twice a month starting in August, or at least September, because there's typically we have a lot to talk about. So talk about every 3 weeks. Those meetings are gonna definitely be and should be longer based on the discussion. Budget, manager's evaluation on top of any other items that come about. And those conversations, ever since I've been on the board, are long for all the right reasons. And good discussions. So I look forward to that time of year, to be honest with you.
I can understand why there's a lot of townships that have a lighter meeting schedule. They don't have our complexity of our governance. Like, we have assets that a lot of these townships do not have to maintain. And I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why, I mean, anytime you want to do a project like we're doing, if there's a change order or something, we'd have to wait.
There are a lot of townships that virtually have no staff
Yeah.
because they're so small. There are 5 trustees, 5-person board. Yeah.
I appreciate the discussion, though.
So-
I mean, it makes you think, it's like, okay, where are we really? But
So what I'm hearing is there is not a desire to change, but there's maybe some openness to look at some flexibility on a few things. But that needs to be kind of data-driven so we understand. Is that accurate?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of flexibility the way it is today.
Yeah, I don't have issue with it
You
today
know, I
either.
mean, if you have something going on, then you're actually only, you'll come once this month and you'll be off a month. I mean, that's pretty darn flexible. When business can still continue.
Would, moving forward then now, Treasurer Rogers indicated time of meeting. Would you like to have a little bit of discussion about that? Not today. We'll have a chance to think about it then. Is it worth having that discussion? Is there a better time than 7 o'clock, is the question, right? Because if you'd like to have that discussion, we'll get that on the agenda and then ask our manager if he can just put a few thoughts together. I don't know that we need a report as much as, you're ready to speak now on it. But I don't know how that will affect staff as far as being able to get dinner and et cetera. Mr. Stuhldrager.
The staff is indifferent on what time you start your meeting. Most of us have spent our whole life for 7 o'clock meetings, twice a month. So that's completely up to you. The frequency of the meetings, that's a little more interesting. I have not worked at a place that had meetings other than twice a month for 30 years. You might think that, Fortune 500 companies, their boards meet quarterly. Why couldn't this body meet quarterly? And I think that's getting into apples and oranges a bit. Clearly there is a public component that doesn't exist in the private sector. This is approximately, when you look at all the funds, an $11 to $12 million operation annually. So it's not small. It's not huge, but it's certainly not small. We do try to, I try to manage the agenda so that we're not overloading the board right now with items on a particular meeting. If things are getting too full for what I feel is a reasonable agenda, then as long as we have the flexibility with, all the weighing everybody's equities, some of the items will get pushed to a future meeting just to balance it out a little bit. Unfortunately, at the state law level, there is not a mechanism to cancel a meeting, which is unfortunate because there have been times where our meeting agenda was going to be pretty light. You've sat through it. We get through it in 45 minutes. The only way we can cancel a meeting is by not having a quorum. And so how do you declare no quorum? You probably at least need a board member to show up, look around, and go, we don't have 5 people here, so we can't have a meeting, so it gets canceled. And I bring that up because, I suppose, and the other thing is we're not supposed to debate stuff outside of meetings, right? So are we able to do the round robin through text or whatever and go, hey, I started, there's not much on the meeting agenda, we could manage the agenda for the second meeting in August. We don't need a meeting, but then you all have to talk to each other and go, yeah, I'm all good, I won't be there. But somebody has to show up, I think, to declare that there's no quorum. I don't think I could do that, But there may be ways to, at the same time, it's silly to meet if you don't have an agenda, so there may be ways to work around that. And the point of me bringing this up is once I understand the playing field a little better, there may be an opportunity where I reach out and go, hey, there's not much going on this 2 weeks from now. You know, I don't see a point in the meeting. I don't know what you all think, but we start making decisions outside of the boardroom. So I don't know, but
Can you plan for that in a way that you typically would for a December, like, you know, once a quarter or once every 6 months, you just don't have that second meeting? Or are there,
well, for a
is
lot
there
of the
enough
reasons that
business
have been spoken about, it, unless we're lucky, I'm guessing somebody is going to feel slighted.
Yeah.
Whether it's just the general public because we're not giving them enough attention, or a counterparty, you know, business that we're looking to do business with, you know.
To me, that kind of bumps up against our ethics
Yeah.
standards that we talked about. And it would be problematic, you know, if a citizen, for whatever reason, was planning on coming in and speaking their piece or whatever, and we didn't have a meeting because we chose not to. I mean, we'll always have an agenda with
And-
something on it.
Well, even if we don't have a meeting with an agenda on it, there is always public comment.
Yeah, right.
And
So
not
there's
have a
something on the
meeting
agenda.
for no reason is taking that away from the
I
public.
can say nothing is more frustrating than having a group of people to show up at a meeting for public comment and there not being a meeting because there's no quorum.
Right.
Like that happened last year, and we were very frustrated because there were a bunch of concerned citizens who were trying to go to a meeting, and there was no meeting. And we found out when we got there. I don't want to be that person that does
No.
that to the public.
We've had some pretty short meetings, and you just take the short with the long.
Yeah.
I
And if
just,
it's too short, you can spend time talking about meetings.
Right.
to summarize,
Good.
I want to give the people that voted, you know, that I don't want to give our constituents a chance, ample opportunity to come hear themselves, you know, make their voices heard.
Right. Which is, I think it's OMA that requires that you can't cancel a meeting. I think it's in the OMA, right? And,
It's just silent.
oh, it's silent on it. But I think that's probably intentional for public comment. And I believe this board historically, and it wouldn't be this one, it would be previous boards. The only time I'm aware of a meeting ever being canceled because of no quorum was extreme weather events where it was not safe for travel.
Yeah.
Then that's only happened 1 or 2 times that I'm aware of.
And we've had some of those instances where probably, you know, we were all a little concerned about staff and they're traveling their distance.
Yeah.
And if staff has to be here, then barring a life event that would prevent any one of us from not being here.
Yeah.
I mean, we're never going to jeopardize the public, the employees, the elected officials' safety. I don't care what the state law says. If we get, you know, 1.5 feet of snow between noon and 7 o'clock, we're not having a meeting.
You're not going to snowmobile here.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Life happens.
Life happens.
Just take
All right, so why don't we set on the agenda to move forward here now? We've had enough meeting on the meetings. But let's have another meeting on meetings and discuss what is the optimal time. And I'll just make one comment. I know the county moved their meetings from some of those, I think, was it 2 o'clock they used to have the early meeting? And I loved it when they moved it to a time that the public, was more accessible to the public. And I guess
They were
it's,
having like a 9 a.m. meeting.
yeah, they were having.
Once a month, and then a later afternoon meeting, so they were having 2 meetings, so they must have made a change, modification.
Yeah. And I was one that complained to him that I work during the day, can't come to your meeting. Anyway, so is any objections to putting that on a future agenda? discuss time?
But it is a
Okay.
24-hour world, so there's people working every one of
I
those
understand,
hours.
yes, absolutely. Okay, so unless there are objections, we'll move on then. We took no action, correct?
Correct.
That brings us to item E on the agenda, policy governance 2.5.10, cash flow ratio. I'll just note, this is on our June calendar, but it's at our first meeting in July. But it's in front of you now. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce it?
Yes, thank you. This is policy 2.5.10, cash flow adequacy. The governance policy review schedules indicates this is to be reviewed in June. It was not on the June agenda. There was some internal confusion on my part primarily as to whether or not 2.5.10 actually existed anymore, because I was looking at a copy of governance policy that didn't have that and didn't have 2.5.10. And I think, yeah, once I figured that out, there is supposed to be a 2.5.10. We updated the policy. We sent it out to you a couple weeks ago, but by that time we were too far along in agenda preparation. We do normally review governance policy items at the second meeting of the month, but I wanted this to be on the first meeting of the month since we were late to begin with. So the policy wording, very short: the township shall not fail to maintain an adequate level of cash flow. Okay, what does that mean? I interpret that policy to state that cash availability for the major funds, we're not talking about debt retirement funds, should not fall below the thresholds as defined in governance policy 2.4.3, which also speaks to cash flow a bit. And that states that for the general fund, 4 months of budgeted expenditures for the current fiscal year, we need to have cash available in that amount to handle 4 months of expenditures. For the fire fund, it's we pay quarterly the city, so we should always have on hand sufficient cash flow to make that at least that next quarterly payment. The East and West DDA funds, 2 months of normal operation expenditures, we should have adequate cash on hand for that. And the water and sewer funds, 2 months of, again, budgeted expenses. I think this is a reasonable interpretation. We define cash flow, if you will, as liquid cash reserves, whether they be held in a bank or an investment pool or credit union, but in an instrument or in a demand deposit account such that we can access those funds as soon as we need them. So even though they might be in a money market account, that's considered liquid cash for our purposes. As far as taxes go, we don't receive our taxes until December, so we need cash flow on hand to get us through that first part of the year. So we want to end the prior year with enough cash, and then we're starting to look forward to when we will receive property taxes anyways. That's our second largest source of revenue. State shared revenue, which is our top source of revenue, that comes in more frequently than cash, so we're able to balance those out a little bit. We do have a report on page 94 where we list our current cash position based on that definition, liquid, irrespective of what type of account it's being held in. So for the general fund, our current cash position is just short of $800,000. The amount required for compliance, almost $1.3 million. So are we compliant there? Yes. Same thing with the fire fund, the EDA fund, significant amount of cash above what's required for compliance, both the east and the west. The sewer fund, we have $6.8 million in what we would define as cash availability, but there are some reservations that have already been made against that, so we subtracted those out of the report and out of the balance. So the sewer net cash position is $6.5 million. Compliance requires a little over $500,000, so we're compliant there. Same with the water fund, 5.1 million of cash, 300,000 required for compliance. So yes, we are compliant. And as you all know and are very familiar with, our fund balance, which is maybe a little different than cash, but in these government funds, it's not a lot different. You've seen fund balances that would indicate we have plenty of cash on hand. That's not labeled here, but it's a data point. So with that, I would be very comfortable in stating that the administration and the township is in compliance with its policies, 2.5.10, and be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. No questions? So I assume there's no objection to the conclusion of being compliant. But I do want to ask, as always, as you look at the policy, is there anything in the policy that does not belong there, maybe should belong there that's not? Tweaks?
So.
Seeing no one jumping forward.
It's very succinct.
Okay. If there's no objection, then we'll move on to item 12 on the agenda, extended public comment, which is restricted to 5 minutes, excuse me, regarding any items. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we'll open up extended public comment at 8:18 p.m. Still have some people connected remotely. So again, to those connected remotely, if you'd like to address the public, please raise your digital hand, which is probably a button on your screen. And let the record show no one's coming forward in public, at least in person.
Can I say one thing, Brian?
Oh, yes, you may, of course.
First of all, thank you for your support and Manager Stuhldreher on our projects that we're doing, the drinking water and the clean water. And I also wanted to send Jennifer Graham's regrets. She would normally be at this meeting, but she had one of those life conflicts tonight, so I told her that Mark and I would do it with her, so to save her the trip down and so she could deal with her conflict. So that's it. I just wanted to let you know that she didn't have regrets that she was not here.
Well, I hope everything works out for her.
Oh, yeah, it's not, she just had something that she had to do tonight, so.
Still seeing no hands digitally. For those connected remotely, we'll give you just a moment more. Seeing none, let the record show nobody came forward for extended public comment. And we'll close that at 8:20 p.m. That brings us to item 13, manager comments. Mr. Stuhldreher.
I just have one. You may recall that last week I was out Monday and Tuesday. I was back in here Wednesday, then out Thursday. Holiday was Friday. And then I've been in the office since Monday. But I am going to be out of the office again Thursday and Friday. I still have all of my kids up north. So I'm going to go continue visiting with them. And, so I'll be out of the office, but readily available. That's all I have, and thank you.
Very good. Treasurer Rogers, this is board member comment, sorry.
I have nothing, thank you.
Trustee Lay,
I'm good.
Trustee Lannon,
All set, thank you.
Trustee Olver.
Just for the record, a commendation to Clerk Cody for the outstanding additional work as we get ready for this primary election coming up. I've been able to experience now the election commission side of things and enjoyed learning more about the process. But certainly the transfer of the early voting location caused some additional workload there in terms of getting notice out to the public, and I just want to commend her for a job well done.
Here, here.
Yeah.
So did you go through the process of where they bring in test ballots
Yes.
of
Oh, yeah.
various
Yep.
different
Yep.
screw-ups, if you
Yep.
will, and
Right.
making sure that it reads them, interprets them
Yep.
properly? Yeah, it's kind of slick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trustee Thering.
Good, thanks.
I only have one comment. As mentioned earlier, I was traveling. I'm not going to mention where again this time. And it was a work trip, so I was with there's 8 or 9 clients that I was working with there. And they all seem to know, and I don't even know how they learned it, that I'm an elected official. And they often come here and we meet in my office, but this time I was traveling to one of their sites. So they always want to know where the municipal boundaries are, so I'm always trying to show them what's in Union Township, what's in the city, explain all that geographics to them. But the conversation happened down in this other place as we were driving to lunch, all in this big SUV, about taxes. And they asked how much property taxes were. So I said, well, mine's a modest home, but this is what I pay, and they just could not believe it. For $300,000, just over $300,000 home in this place, this person was paying $1,100 a month in property taxes.
Wow.
I said, yeah, but you probably don't have income tax or sales tax, and they're like, oh no, we have income tax, and it was more than Michigan does, and their sales tax was 2% higher, and it just astounded me. And even though Prop A isn't my favorite act of all time, there is a lot I like about it. So I just wanted to commend Michigan a little bit, because as you venture to other states, sometimes the taxes that are being paid there, it just astounded me.
Yeah.
So a trip to the state of taxes.
Yeah.
I like you on this board.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll see you in 3 weeks.
And with that, our business is done. We'll adjourn at 8:23 p.m.
Thank you, everybody.